All right, good day, everybody. This is Emar Sopertu. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting on May 10th, 2021. Hope all of you are well out there and had a good weekend. It's a Monday morning as we do our broadcast. A lot went on in the world of sports this weekend. We're going to discuss some soccer and NFL content, even miscellaneous sports and miscellaneous department that we don't touch on, such as horse racing and golf. Before we get to all of that, as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can head to our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're got a lot going on this week. Hopefully, we're lining up some interviews. Also, want to say that we're going to do on the show, as I mentioned, we'll go over Atlanta United, their match against Inter Miami. We'll touch on the back NBA with the backdoor cut, technical state of Georgia athletics. A lot of conference tournaments are starting in some sports, and in some other ones, we're even heading to in the NCAA tournament. So we're trying to line up some interviews as far as that goes as the spring season rolls on in college sports. And go to our social media platforms whenever we have that stuff. You can be able to subscribe to us and get all of that content. You can also subscribe to our social media platform, the social media platforms, as well as our audio and video content providers, including YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. Do a search for us under Sports Inquirer. You can like us, subscribe to us, and give us a listen or a watch. And that we appreciate that. And it's also a very good way to keep track of everything that is going on. As I said, we'll start with the free kick portion of the show and go over Atlanta United's draw at Inter Miami CF. I want to keep calling them Inter Miami FC or even SC, but CF. Got to get it right. But yeah, Atlanta went down to Miami, had the 1-1 draw in MLS play, meaning that they are now 1-2-1 on their MLS season. Actually, you think they are. Let me get that right as I'm going over everything. But yeah, so there are. So they second consecutive. Let's see. So now their regular season record, and it is confused. They're 1-2-1. I was correct. Yeah, 5 points so far on the season. Very condensed schedule for Atlanta United. They have been not only playing in MLS regular season, they have been, or they were in the CONCACAF Champions League. So they have been playing a lot of matches. That was their fourth match in 11 days that Atlanta United has been involved in. Yeah, so they played on the 9th, which was yesterday as we're recording on Sunday. They also had that match at Philadelphia on the 4th, the previous week, when they were eliminated from the Champions League tournament, and they had two matches the week before that in that 7 day span. So heavy legs for Atlanta United, but were able to earn the 1-1 draw. Here is manager Gabriel Heinze on earning the point in Miami.
Bueno, creo que los primeros 45 minutos el equipo estuvo muy bien.
I believe the first 45 minutes the team did well.
Ahí tendríamos que haber sacado una diferencia más.
I believe that in this first half we should score even more.
Y el segundo tiempo nos ha costado por muchas razones el mantener esa intensidad.
But in the second half we struggled to keep this intensity.
Hemos pagado el poco descanso y la temperatura, que es algo que es muy difícil de poder recuperarte, ¿no?, en un partido.
Also, we struggled to the temperature and the short amount of time of recovery after the last game.
Yeah, and Atlanta were able to get on the board first in the contest, and it was a big moment for Atlanta United, the franchise, and the supporters, as Josef Martinez scored his first goal since returning from the torn ACL injury, which he sustained last year. Really good play by Emerson Hyndman, who received a pass from Jake Mulroney on the right side of the goal. He passed it into Martinez inside of the penalty box. Josef was able to settle the ball and did a kind of turnaround shot with his left foot and pushed it back past John McCarthy, the goalkeeper for Miami, to score the goal. As I said, it happened early in the first half, and that was a A big moment for himself and for Atlanta. Here is Martinez on the goal.
I have a lot of things in my mind, but my first thing is go to the doctors because they spend a lot of time with me, and they deserve it. So that's why.
And I said it was a very clinical strike by Josef Martinez, and I'll get to statistics later on and how long it had been since Martinez had scored an actual goal. But here is Heinze on that goal and what it meant for the team.
Es algo muy bueno para José después de tanto tiempo.
Something very good for Josef after a long time.
Y siempre para el equipo es bueno.
And always for the team is good too.
And finally, Brad Guzan, the team captain, he has some thoughts on Josef Martinez's goal and what the impact was for the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, but I think more importantly, it's huge for him to get on the score sheet from a confidence standpoint. As you said, I think everyone knows he's probably not 100%. I think he's admitted that, but he's working his way back to 100%. We've told him, I've told him to, take it one game at a time, gain that confidence with every play, with every turn, with every challenge, every tackle. And now we can say every goal because I thought he took the goal fantastically well. To take a touch, almost kill the ball right there and turn and shoot. That shows you where his mentality's at in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. So hats off to him for sure.
Yeah, and he was very happy that Josef scored that goal, his first goal in over a year, and more than a year, I should say. But the problem is that it was not the game winner for Atlanta. Atlanta did continue to try to score on multiple attempts in the first half, were just unable to do it. And Miami also had a lot of scoring opportunities in the first half. Lewis Morgan had a nice crossing path in the 17th minute into the penalty box area, and it was headed by former Atlanta player Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, but Guzen was able to make a nice save there. Morgan had another cross later on in the half that went right to Gonzalo Higuain, who had a direct shot on goal, but Guzen was able to get his body onto it. Actually, it was a nice kick save and was able to keep the score 1-0 heading into halftime. Guzen had seven season high 6 saves in the contest, including a nice save on a Jadoa shot in the second half. He and Jadoa were going for the ball. It was a 50-50 ball. Guzen, outstretched arms, was able to make the save, and Jadoa got tripped. And there was a lot of controversy with that. A lot of people in Miami, including the coaching staff of Miami, were calling for a penalty, but it was not awarded. And here's Guzen on that save and his positioning with that contested shot.
Yeah, he said the same things walking off the field. For me, it's not a penalty, obviously, but if you make the save, if the goalkeeper makes a save with his arms extended, which happened, which I believe then the ball ends up going over the end line behind me, right? But my arms are still extended. If I don't make a play on his legs or, trying to pull him down, which is not the case because I'm not looking at him, I'm ultimately looking back at the ball. But if you make the save and your arms are still extended and he then trips over my legs, I haven't seen it back, but for me, I don't think that's a penalty. And that's exactly what the referee said to me, because obviously they're all complaining about a penalty. Listen, I think if you give that as a penalty, I don't know what the goalkeeper is meant to do, because you can't extend your arm, make a save, and then bring your arms back in, especially if you're spreading for a 50-50 ball. So, yeah, I disagree with him.
Yeah, and despite all of that, Miami was able to equalize the score in the 77th minute. Morgan received a pass on the right wing. He went past several defenders, including George Bello, and was able to get a straight shot onto Brad Guzan. And Morgan was able to push the shot at the near post. It was a low attempt, and it went past Guzan, and the score was 1-1. So once again, we saw Atlanta get off to a solid first half start, but unable to sustain that strong form of play into the second half. Here is Gabriel Heinze on those second half struggles.
Es exactamente eso.
It's exactly what you said.
Pero no, el equipo no, posicionalmente no cambió.
The team positionally did not change.
Sí creo que los esfuerzos eran, no que no querían hacer el esfuerzo, pero no podían.
It means like they didn't want to do the effort, but they could not.
Y cuando hacías el esfuerzo y recuperábamos, debíamos tener el balón.
And when we did the effort and we recovered the ball, we needed to keep the possession.
Y no podíamos recuperar para estar un poco mejor, ¿no?
We struggled to recover the ball and recover with the ball.
Pero el equipo no ha cambiado posicionalmente.
But the team did not change positionally.
Sí que sabíamos que el segundo tiempo nosotros íbamos a sufrir.
We knew that in the second half we would suffer.
Pero bueno, creo que el primer tiempo sí hicimos también méritos para irnos un poquito más mejor en el resultado.
But I think in the first half we should have scored at least one more goals, like more difference.
Yeah, and obviously I mentioned in the first part of the recap the condensed schedule that the team has been playing. It was in Miami, close to 90 degrees, had water breaks, which we have not seen too often this time of year. We're only in the early part of May and already doing water or hydration breaks in the middle of halves. So you add all of that up, there were some, you could tell, issues there with the fatigue of Atlanta, but still they're professionals and no excuses. But it's just one of those things that they have to improve on and get better at. And here is Brad Guzan elaborating on the second half struggles for Atlanta.
No, I mean, listen, the first half we were good. We exploited space. We followed what we wanted to do in terms of the game plan. The second half, we turned the ball over unnecessarily, silly turnovers in bad spaces, in bad places. And when you look at their chances today, 2 or 3 in the first half, where we've gifted the ball to them. You look at the goal, we gift them the ball off of our free kick. And even so, another 1 or 2 chances in the second half where we've, the chance with Higuain, Gonzalo, where a missed pass and next thing you know, he's in on goal. So we need to be sharper with the ball, regardless if we're tired. And, that comes from mentally being sharp, physically, of course, being sharp, and making sure we're secure with it.
And he elaborated quite well, just saying that they get off the first 45 minutes. They were very good. As again, the Josef Martinez goal was, a very nice moment, not only sentimentally, but actually contributing to the win or loss of the contest. But they were unable to sustain that in the second half. And you just saw that second half goal probably coming for Miami when you're watching the contest. And sure enough, it took place. But for Josef Martinez, we'll wrap up the recap on this. It was his first Atlanta United goal in general since since last year, February of 2020. So more than 440 days since his last goal for Atlanta United, and he scored that in the CONCACAF Champions League against Motagua. His last MLS goal came in 2019 against Philadelphia in the playoffs. So that was 564 days since his last MLS goal. His last MLS regular season goal came on October 6, 2019 against New England, and that was 582 days ago. So more than a year and a half since his last goal in the regular season as far as MLS play. He was very emotional after the goal. He ran to his trainers and the support staff of Atlanta United on the sideline after he scored the goal. And here he is about the emotions of putting the ball in the back of the net.
Always the confidence good, more easy when you score, no? Every day my mind is try to be better and healthy, and we won or not, for me, the most important is my knee. Feel better every day. But today was the best moment in my life because we work a lot, we suffer a lot, and I hopefully this is the first of the many.
Yeah, so I said it was a very emotional moment for him and what he was trying to do. Atlanta returns to action May 15th at home against Montreal. Just looking around the MLS, yeah, just looking at the standings overall, we saw Seattle able to earn a win over Portland. So Seattle right now has 10 points, which is the most in the Western Conference. We saw that LA Galaxy able to get a win over LAFC on Saturday. Yeah, and you look at the Galaxy, the 3-0-1 on the season, off to a very solid start. Chicharito with 5 goals so far this season, which is a really good start, for him. LAFC 1-2-1 to start their year, which is pretty below their standards. The Austin FC, not too bad of a start for an expansion team. They have 2 wins and 2 losses on the year. They were leading the majority of their contests against Sporting Kansas City, excuse me, yesterday, but they allowed 2 goals in the second half, and that hampered the attempts of Austin to get a road win. But yeah, you see what they're doing there. And then East, you have New York and Orlando. They had a draw. New York Revolution, I should say, New York City FC and had a draw against Orlando. And they have 7. NYCFC has 7 points, along with the Revolution, who are 2-1-1 on the year. So those two teams are at the top of the Eastern Conference as far as the standings go. Yeah, so Atlanta finds itself in the bottom. Well, no, they're in the mid table as far as the Eastern Conference goes. But it's very early in this season, and as Atlanta finally gets a break of not playing a game for 7 days. So that'll be very beneficial to actually it'd be 6 days technically, but still no midweek game for Atlanta, and that'll be very beneficial for them as they move on through the season. Now let's move on to the backdoor cut portion of the show and things going on in the NBA. We saw last night or this weekend Russell Westbrook tied the career triple-double record with Oscar Robertson in their overtime victory, I think, over Indiana. Here's my thing on Russell Westbrook. What I'm trying to word this nicely because it seems like when I talk about him, I'm overly critical of him. But screw it. This is a sports show or a broadcast. That's what we do. We analyze stuff. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Yes. Is he one of the top point guards of his generation? Yes. What more do you have to say about him? It seems like there's this divide or this. We have to overcorrect the criticism of Westbrook from what has been early on in his career. And what I mean by that is when he was with Oklahoma City, especially when it was with Kevin Durant, anytime that Oklahoma City did bad, it was on Westbrook. Durant got minimal criticism for it, and that includes some postseason disappointments. Remember, there was a time where they lost in the NBA Finals to the Miami Heat. Not insulting to lose to Miami in the NBA Finals, but Westbrook it was all Westbrook's fault when they were up 3-1 against the Warriors in the postseason and dropped 3 contests in the conference finals. It was all Westbrook's fault. And Durant eventually moved on to Golden State, and we all know the history from there. So Westbrook ended up producing all of these triple doubles and all these great statistics, individual statistics, and the team postseasons they make the playoffs, but weren't winning at a clip that you necessarily expect. And it seemed like there was a lot of media criticizing him for that. Some warranted, some maybe not so much. Now he's on a Washington Wizards team that is gonna finish maybe with a 500 record or worse. They may be in the play-in scenario for the Eastern Conference. He's producing some tremendous numbers. For the month, if you go back to April, he's producing about 25 points and over more than 12 rebounds and 12 assists per game. Statistically, the numbers are incredible, and very high marks, but is it really translating to wins and losses? And is that his fault? And I think that's also why you're seeing, and that's why you have to be very careful as well listening to former players as analysts. And the former players, NBA players, they give great perspectives because they played professionally and they have a very good view of what's going on the court or off the court. But they also are by nature very selfish. And I know you say, oh, they all want to win and be. And yes, you have that in them, but to reach that level that they reach to be professionals, it takes a large amount of selfishness to achieve that goal. Whatever endeavor that you have in life, it does take a tremendous amount of selfishness to get to the top of your profession. Now you can balance it out, obviously, with being, humility and acknowledging your surroundings and all that other stuff. That's important too. But I have not met an individual that's very successful in their professional or political endeavors, even being a good family person, without being selfish and making sure that they focus on themselves to achieve their ultimate goal or success. And then it ties into all the other stuff going on. So I think these NBA players who are analysts are, they look at Westbrook and they see a guy who plays hard and tries hard. And that's another thing as well. I don't like the aspect of it makes it seem like Westbrook is the only guy in the NBA that's ever played hard or tried hard. He does a very good job of looking like he's playing hard and trying hard. And he is. He gives a lot of effort and he plays with a lot of those qualities. But there are 95% of NBA players that do the same exact thing and give the extra effort. They may not achieve as much as he has because Westbrook is a supremely talented player. But this whole thing that well, remember with Brett Favre would be the same deal when he was playing in the NFL. He has so much fun out there. Look at the extra effort he's giving. All those guys to reach that level, they all are giving that. A majority of them, you have a handful that maybe coast and all that stuff, but they all, or majority of them, give that same amount of effort, but they're not as emotive with it. They're not as boisterous about it. And so when Westbrook does his moves and he makes the mean faces and makes the physical gyrations and stuff like that, it was like, oh, I look at that effort. Look how hard he's going. A lot of those guys are doing that. And I'm saying that, not saying that Westbrook is doing that for show. That's his natural personality. But don't mistake that for other people not giving that same amount of effort. So in the end, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to own this record for the most career triple doubles, and sometimes maybe that's his fate, and that's okay. There's no need to really promote him and supersede it and try to elevate him into this class. And we've seen this debate or argument in the sports profession. As a sports media member, you need stuff to talk about. Is he the greatest point guard of all time or the second greatest point guard? And Magic Johnson came out a few days ago and said that he couldn't do what Westbrook is doing. And that's Magic being very humble and being very nice in that regard. Magic Johnson's a much better player than Russell Westbrook is or will be. Oh, and as a Westbrook's career is not over, but Magic Johnson is maybe top 5 player all time history NBA, and he's trying to be nice and throw Westbrook some respect in that regard. But there's no need to look, Westbrook is what he is. And if he's the 5th best point guard all time or 10th best, I mean, no, that's for arguments and all that stuff. But as I said, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be recognized as one of the better players of his generation. Will he win a championship? He's won an MVP. I said, will he have all those accolades? We don't know. So it is what it is. And there's no need to elevate him beyond, what he's really doing. And I think that we're finding there's just overcorrection, especially from the former NBA players that are trying to make him to be beyond what he is. Appreciate what he's doing right now and his efforts, but let's slow down on putting him on an all-time list. And I mean, if you're going to be a Hall of Famer, and I said once again, he will be that. That's pretty solid in itself. So we'll see what happens with Westbrook the rest of the year, and I said he'll set that record within the next few weeks and get that triple double mark, and see if Washington can find itself into the postseason. We saw Anthony Davis score 42 points for the Lakers in their win over Phoenix in the double double effort. I think with the Lakers, it really comes down to health, and if Davis can stay healthy, and he's dealing with that ankle injury or that Achilles. That's very concerning for me. And we even saw him kind of roll the ankle late in the contest against Phoenix, and he ended up finishing the contest, but he was limping up and down the court. And he's the problem with the Achilles, and you knock on wood or pray to whoever, or hope you have good karma. I mean, that thing doesn't go because if you strain it, it's very close to going. And if that happens, we know he's going to be out a very long time. But he's playing through it. And it was good seeing him. He had a few dunks in the contest, elevating his body and everything like that. But still, that's an injury that's just not. He could do well these past few games. He's playing 35 plus minutes, and that strains the body as well. But it also means that all it takes is one bad cut or move to the basket, and that injury could be aggravated again. And the same deal with LeBron James. We saw him come back last week from the ankle injury. He played a few contests, and now he's been out the past few. So those two guys, who are LeBron is up there in age, NBA wise, and Anthony Davis has had injuries issues in the past, and now he's dealing with this Achilles issue. You have two guys in fragile states that are trying to find their way to make it through a regular season and into a postseason, which for the Lakers can include two play-in games just to make it to the playoffs. That's a lot on their plate. I have a feeling that this just may not be the year for the Lakers to win the championship. They won last year, and it's no fault of their own. I mean, these are injuries that just happened. But if you look outside of Davis and LeBron James, the rest of that roster is not very good. I know Andre Drummond's gone there and had some moments. Dennis Schroeder, he's dealing with injuries his own way. Even Kyle Kuzma has not been able to see the court consistently. It's just one of those years where they're trying to figure it out and put it together, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be the year, for the Lakers. But you look at the West, who do you really want to put in that capacity? We saw Phoenix. Phoenix has been near the top of the standings. We saw them lose to the Lakers. We've seen Utah have ups and downs. Denver blew a 20-point lead this past weekend at home to Brooklyn. So the Lakers, and then the Clippers lost at home to the Knicks. And yes, the Knicks are doing very well, and it's a good story. But there's no reason for the Clippers to be losing at home to the Knicks, and at this point of the season. So I say all that stuff about the Lakers, but ultimately, if they come back healthy, relatively healthy, if they get Davis and LeBron James on the court at the same time, they have a shot at it. So we'll see what happens, in the Western Conference and throughout the NBA. All right, let's move on to the technical state of Georgia athletics and things going on in the world of college athletics in the state of Georgia. A lot of activity on the tennis court. Georgia Tech women's tennis they're in the round of 16. They were able to defeat North Florida 4-0 on May 9th. They're going to face UCLA on May 16th. It's the 11th time in program history that they are in the round of 16. By the way the tennis tournament works as far as the NCAA goes is that the first two rounds are on home courts. And then when you get to the round of 16, the singles and doubles, and then the team competition, they all happen in one location. And this year, it's going to be in Orlando, Florida. So they are going to be playing in Florida on May 16th, starting with the Yellow Jackets as far as the women with UCLA. The Georgia Bulldogs, their women's tennis team, is also in the round of 16. They were able to defeat Wake Forest 4-1 in the second round. They're going to face Virginia. We are looking to have a representative from that team on our show or on the Sports Inquirer within the next few days. We've reached some contacts. We're trying to set something up. I don't want to guarantee anything, but we should be able to have either a coach or a player from that team within the next few days. So be sure on the lookout for that. And then the Georgia men's tennis team is in the round of 16 as well. They were able to defeat Texas Tech 4-0 in their second round contest. They are going to face North Carolina in their next contest. And so that's going on as far as the tennis scene goes. The Georgia Tech women's softball team, because no men's softball in NCAAs, the softball team for Georgia Tech, they're going to be playing in the ACC tournament starting on May 12th, which is this upcoming Wednesday. They're going to face Syracuse in their first round contest, and hopefully we'll get someone from there and them as well. They've provided us with some good interviews and good contests, so we are on the horn trying to get someone from the Georgia Tech softball team to speak with us. So be on the lookout for that as well. Let's go to the Miscellaneous Department to wrap up today's show and some news and notes around the world of sports. I saw the DK Metcalf, him running in the United States track and field event this past weekend. He ran in 100 meters at 10.36 seconds, finishing, I think, 16th out of 18th or 14th out of 16 runners. I thought it was a really good moment. You look at him, obviously we've seen his skills on the football field and everything that he's done on there. He's not a track athlete. He really wasn't, as far as, before this endeavor. He decided to give it a shot. That's a really, really fast time for a man who does not train track consistently and his size. I mean, the man is, and I'll pull up, he's good 6'4", 245, 250, and running that type of speed, really good effort. And I don't mind it at all. And I've seen the criticism of it. He should focus on football and he should not be trying to do these other different things. I encourage multiple sport athletes. I think it's something that we should be hoping to see more often. I think too often we are in an era, and I've seen this just covering sports and then having some family members who have gone through the high school level and the collegiate level and competing in that regard. And everyone is so forced into being in one sport. You have to play only one of your disciplines. I think being a multiple sport athlete really enhances your athletic endeavors in all ways, and this is a good sign of it. And Metcalf is doing this stuff anyway, and it's the off season for football. It's not like week 4 of the NFL season he decides to do a track meet. This is in the summer or the spring portion of the year. He's doing this type of stuff anyway. A lot of the football players, especially if he's a skill position player like he is, a wide receiver, he's already doing track work. Now, is he working specifically on running the 100-meter, sprint? No, but he's already doing drills and things that use his body. So in a way, this keeps him in good shape during his off season. But you also see how technical track and field is. I think a lot of people assume that these guys, or the men and women, as far as the sprinters go, or any of the disciplines, you just go on the blocks and run as fast as you can. That is not the case at all. It is a very, very, very technical sport. You have to have good positioning when you go on the block. You have to be in one position. You have to accelerate, decelerate. I think that I remember hearing an athlete talk about it, or in 100 meters, even though it's only 10, 11 seconds, or if you really get into the elite level, less than 10 seconds, I think there are about 10 to 15 steps. Not the literal, well, yeah, maybe the literal steps that you take, but as far as kind of checkpoints that you have to do when you're running. I said from your body positioning, from the start, when to elevate your chest, where your arms are, where your legs are, your hip placement, all that stuff, it takes place. You don't really see it when you're watching a race. You just see people running in a straight line as fast as you can. But all those things matter. Where where your foot is, your ankles, all those things. And these athletes, when they run the sprints, or even when they're running get to 200 meters and 400s and hurdles and all that stuff, it's like a little checklist that they're going through while they're running while they're participating in the event. And if you mess up on any of them or don't execute completely or correctly, it'll take half a tenth of a second off. And that's another thing about the sport. It's so minute. I mean, he half of a second in real life or even in a lot of sports endeavors, you can make up or you can work around. Half a second on 100 meters, you may as well be 10, 20 meters apart in difference. That's how big, that is. But I like Metcalf giving it a chance and running it, bringing attention to track and field. I don't understand why some of the track and field people were mad at this. I think if anything, it's humbling and it shows that how difficult their sport is. You have a world-class football player come into your sport, do okay or do very well by, his standards, but not even sniff out the top half of a meet that probably will not have an Olympian on it. So that shows the difficulty and respect they should be giving track and field. So I think that that's a good thing as far as that goes. I saw that Bob Baffert was suspended indefinitely from horse races at Churchill Downs after the revelation that his race, that the horse that he trained, Kentucky Derby winner Medina Spirit, tested positive for an overage of a medication. So the Hall of Fame trainer has now been suspended by Churchill Downs. They're investigating the race winner, as a Medina Spirit, that the horse may lose the Kentucky Derby and it be awarded to another horse. But the reality is, and I'm not a horse racing expert, but there have been a lot of issues with horse racing in the past few years with Santa Anita, with all of the horses that have died racing on that track and really tracks around the country. And so that's been an issue, whether it's been the actual dirt or the track itself or the grass or turf that they race on, to the treatment of and that's this is an example of and we don't want to accuse guilt because there'll be another test, but maybe the medication or just the performance enhancing drugs given to the horses has maybe reached a bad level. But all of this is not, it's not a good sign, for a sport that you really only majority of people only pay attention to when you get to the Triple Crown. And the Kentucky Derby obviously is the biggest race out of those three. So when you're the winner of your biggest race of the year is potentially suspended or being stripped of his title because of performance enhancing drugs or steroids, that's not a good situation. But we'll be keeping track of it as it rolls through. And then Rory McIlroy won the Wells Fargo Open, his first golf tournament win in 18 months. It was funny. I was watching the first round of that because I was working an event and the TV was on, and I was seeing Rory was in the running. Phil Mickelson was in the running as well. He was doing really well, and then not so well for Phil later on in the contest. But good win for McIlroy as they progress through the season. I'm over the Bryson DeChambeau act. Well, if you don't know what happened, he was in the event, had a bad 2 rounds in the event, decided to get on his plane, fly back to Texas, which is his home base, I think in Dallas, and in the middle of the flight, he realized that all the other guys were not scoring as well, and sure enough, by the time he landed, he had made the cut, and he was unable to turn around that same day and fly back to Charlotte where the golf tournament was taking place. So he had to fly that next morning. He got there right before his tee time was up, and he had an average next 2 days in the third and fourth round. But it's just typical DeChambeau. You mail in 2 rounds. You took your little appearance fee, and you decide to take your ball and go home. But sure enough, you have to go pick up your ball again and go back and play again. There's no reason he couldn't have waited until the end of the second round took place before he got in his plane and went back to Texas. I mean, what are you saving yourself? Maybe 2-3 hours of time. It's just, but it's typical him. He overthinks things all the time and tries to do too much from the eating habits to his training to how he approaches the golf shots, his hat. I mean, it's all this. It's always an act with him, and he's a very, very good golfer. He's won a major. I know he drives the ball very hard and well, and a long distance. People like seeing that. So I'm not saying he's a scrub or he shouldn't play or he can't play. He's a very good golfer. I said he's probably one of the top 5, 10, 15 golfers in the world, depending on where you rank them. But it's just another example of him just making it all about himself and an act. And I'm over it. And as I said, it's a funny little anecdote, and I mentioned on the show, so more promotion for him, I guess. But it just wasn't surprising, when he did that and got on the plane and had to fly back. And obviously, it's a big story. Went into details about how he was training and all this other stuff, and had to figure out what he was doing. It's like, it's enough, dude. I'm over him. It's similar to Aaron Rodgers, and I didn't touch on Aaron Rodgers, but because honestly, if he's traded, released, signs a contract extension, I'll acknowledge that again. I talked about it, during the draft, because it was announced during the draft that he didn't want to play there again. I touched on all that stuff, and because it was the news of the day. But now we're at a standoff or whatever. Whenever he signs or he does do his thing, that's fine. We'll discuss it. But I'm not going to spend 5-10 minutes on cryptic tweets and what's he going to do and what's he not going to do when we all know honestly nothing's really going to take place until June 1st, just for salary cap purposes and contracts and things like that. When that happens, we'll have a note of it and we'll go on. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening to our broadcast. As always, go to thesportsinquirer.net, our mothership, for all things Sports Inquirer related. You can also go to the social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes under the Sports Inquirer. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.